Hello, boys and girls, moms and dad, friends and family, and anyone else who may have tuned in today. Welcome to Storytime with Jamie. I'm so glad you've tuned in today. If this is your first time tuning in and you'd like to know about all my story times when they're available, you can always subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed today's story, give us a thumbs up. And as always, if you're interested in any of my other books, you can always visit my website at jamiebryantbooks.com. Well, today's story is going to be super fun and interactive. I'm going to be reading a story I wrote from a book titled Fish Guts and Other Bedtime Stories. Today's story is about food, if you haven't already gathered, and the title of today's story is Sloppy Joes. Have any of you ever eaten a Sloppy Joe before? You have? You haven't? You should try one. Well, I wasn't a big Sloppy Joe fan when I was a little girl, and that's what this story is about. Let's begin. I confess I'm a very picky eater and have been all my life. I don't like to eat mayonnaise, ketchup, mustard, salad dressing, or anything with vinegar in it. My mom, dad, and grandparents, who all loved me dearly, allowed me to be like this. This was all fine when I was a baby, a toddler, and even preschool age. I was able to eat whatever I wanted on my hamburger or my hot dog and everything else. Eating out with me was a pain, but we didn't eat out much back then anyway. I was very anxious to turn 5 years old and be able to go to school. The first day of school finally arrived, and after some tears for my mom on the first day, I adjusted nicely. However, I did not adjust to our school lunches. In those days, not very many children packed their lunches. Also, there weren't choices of different meals. For example, if you were having hot dogs, you either ate hot dogs or you starved. Starving actually would have been an option if you weren't in Mrs. Ball's first grade class. One of Mrs. Ball's many rules was that we had to eat everything on our plates. Even if you weren't a picky eater, this was a huge request. The cafeteria always served strange foods that usually didn't compare to your mom's home cooking. Some of my favorite meals were pizza, chicken, and hamburgers. The day I always dreaded was the day we had Sloppy Joes. I absolutely hated Sloppy Joes. I don't know why I hated them so much, because I had never really tasted one. Nonetheless, I had convinced myself that when they prepared them, they must have put ketchup and vinegar and other ingredients in them that I didn't like. The unknown was probably what convinced me that I hated them. It didn't take Mrs. Ball long to figure out that I was a picky eater. This particular day, I was sitting only 4 chairs down from her. As I lined up to get my lunch tray, I knew by that smell what was on the menu. I couldn't mistake the smell of Sloppy Joes. I could smell those disgusting things a mile away. I lined up with the others and waited intently as the cafeteria workers passed my tray and handed it to me. We were seated in an orderly row, and I began the familiar process of playing with my food. Have you boys and girls ever played with your food? You know, you kind of move it a little to the left and to the right. You know, you just kind of mess around with it a little bit. Well, a couple of my classmates who were sitting across from me asked me, "Are you going to eat it?" They knew me well. Once before, when we had sloppy joes, I actually cried as I took bite after bite and made myself sick to my stomach. Mrs. Ball already glanced my way more than once. I would look back and try to smile a little. The thought of eating that sloppy joe had my stomach churning. Ooh. I slowly ate my corn. You know, corn's good. Right, boys and girls? Do you all like corn? I was eating something on my plate. And then I drank a little milk with my corn. All right. We also had mixed fruit. And although I was picky, I did pick out a couple kinds of fruit that I liked. The idea came to me right after I was washing down the fruit with my milk. The best inspiration I had had in a long time. I subtly began my task. I took a bite of my sloppy joe, trying desperately not to chew or taste it. Next, I picked up my milk carton, and when Mrs. Ball looked away, I quickly spit it out into the milk carton. Wow! The first bite was gone, and I didn't have to stomach it. I continued my plan and was on bite number 4. When my friend Amy across the table caught on to what I was doing. She nearly burst out laughing, but quickly refrained when Mrs. Ball looked away. You boys and girls don't want to watch me eat the whole sloppy joe and spit it into my milk carton, do you? You do? Really? Well, let's read on. Maybe I will. Quiet down, girls, Mrs. Ball stated in her firm voice when she heard Amy laughing. Now nearly half of our table knew I was up to something. Everyone was watching me intently, awaiting my next move. With all of this attention, I knew I could get caught. So I decided to make the next few bites a little bit larger. My next bite was the biggest yet, and just as I was reaching for my milk carton to get rid of it, someone kicked me under the lunch table. I looked up to find Mrs. Ball looking right at me. I began to slowly chew, careful not to swallow one morsel. Oh, as I looked at her with a grin. Crash! Someone dropping his lunch tray saved me, and Mrs. Ball's quick glance in their direction helped me get that last bit in the milk carton. I also took the distraction as an opportunity to pinch off a couple of pieces and shove them in as well. Only 1 or 2 more bites and that sloppy joe would be gone. It was as if everyone in the whole cafeteria was watching me now, including Mrs. Ball. I anxiously waited for another distraction, but nothing happened. The lunch half hour was almost over, and Mrs. Ball had gotten out of her seat to come over and make sure we had all finished our lunch. "You're doing good, Jamie," she admitted to me and added, "just a few more bites." The boy next to me was released to take his tray, and when he got up, I took another bite and quickly disposed of it in my milk carton. Everyone around me was finished and getting up to empty their trays. Now, with only a couple of us still eating, Mrs. Ball could really keep her eyes on us. Her last call to finish up came, and I was determined not to eat that sloppy Joe. Out of desperation, I picked up the last big piece and shoved it into my mouth as I got up to empty my tray into the trash can. All eyes were on me, and when I got to the trash, I turned my back and to Mrs. Ball and slowly spit it into the trash. Little trash can there, boys and girls. Oh, as I looked up, nearly all my classmates were smiling at me. In their eyes, I had conquered. However, I was just happy to have survived another Sloppy Joe lunch day. As we lined up to go back to class, Amy asked me, "Did you actually swallow any of that Sloppy Joe?" "Not a single bite," I replied. Mrs. Ball tapped me on the shoulder that very instant and exclaimed, "Jamie, I'm very proud of you for eating all of your lunch today." I made no comment, but a small smile glimmered on my face. Did you enjoy that story, boys and girls? You did? Was it kind of gross? Yeah, it was kind of gross. But eating a Sloppy Joe for me when I was in kindergarten and first grade was even grosser. Well, I'm glad you tuned in today. And by the way, as an adult, I do eat Sloppy Joes now, but I did not when I was a little girl. But again, glad you tuned in today. This story about Sloppy Joes is found in the book Fish Guts and Other Bedtime Stories. Just a little side note, I am getting ready to relaunch Fish Guts. It's a second edition with a brand new cover and some new art and different things inside. And that'll be released probably in about a month or so. This edition is still available at my website, or you can contact me directly. There's a few copies of this left. So anyway, if you enjoyed today's video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to know next time there's a video coming available, subscribe to my channel. And as always, you can see any of my books at jamiebryantbooks.com. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye, boys and girls. Goodbye. Goodbye.